When 3 women vanish without a trace, investigators comb for clues and find themselves on the trail of a savvy serial killer. Without witnesses, detectives are at a total loss to find a missing woman. To solve this case requires an act of God. When a woman disappears from under her own roof, investigators suspect that she was murdered. But getting to the bottom of it will require some sophisticated technology. Most murder investigations begin with a body. But when the body is missing, detectives face the ultimate challenge: catching a killer when the victim is presumed dead.
Tips hotline.
It was a Monday, June 19th, 1989, when police in the Kansas City suburb of Overland Park, Kansas, received a call from worried parents. Their daughter, 24-year-old Joan Butler, hadn't shown up for work that morning. She hadn't even phoned in. No one had seen her since early the day before.
That's interesting because...
Though she had been gone just over 24 hours, her parents were convinced something terrible must have happened to prevent her from contacting anyone.
And then the town that he grew up
Police agreed to check on her.
in, that's a small town.
When investigators searched Joan's apartment with one of her friends, they found no sign of her. And according to Detective Pat Hinkle, no sign that she planned on being away.
No bags had been packed. Her makeup was still around the sink. No clothing appeared to have been removed from the apartment, so the only thing missing was Joan.
They learned that Joan had spent Saturday night with her girlfriends.
Yeah, I do. They're great.
At 4 a.m. Sunday, she went home.
I love you. That explains it. Thanks again. I'll call you tomorrow.
That was the last time they saw her. Joan Butler wasn't the kind of person to leave without a word. She saw her parents at least once a week and socialized often with her friends. She wouldn't miss work without good reason. In her apartment, her friend pointed out to police the clothes Joan was last seen wearing, so she had definitely made it home. But her purse, wallet, and her car were missing. By roll call Tuesday morning, the mystery had deepened. A check of Butler's bank account revealed that $300, the daily maximum, had been withdrawn from an ATM at 6 a.m. Sunday, just 2 hours after she was last seen. It happened again early Monday and early Tuesday. All the ATMs were in the Kansas City area. None had video cameras. The pattern suggested that someone else was in control of Joan Butler's account, and maybe in control of Joan.
He had gone down and played, I don't know if you remember.
Her family and friends posted leaflets all over Kansas City, describing Joan and her car and pleading for help to find her. Her disappearance made the news, but turned up no leads. Until 1 week later. On June 25th, police got their first tip. Joan's car had been spotted outside an apartment complex 40 miles from her home. The man with Joan's keys told the officer that he'd borrowed them from his buddy inside. The officer suggested they go in and sort things out. The suspect began to escort the officer inside, then took off. He caught the policeman by surprise and made an agile escape. The officer learned that the fugitive was a painting contractor named Ricky Cho, and the men were his crew. They also told him that Cho recently started driving a new red car, Joan Butler's car. When police examined the trunk, they discovered part of the carpet had been cut away. They also found a dark stain. They presumed it was Joan Butler's blood. According to Detective Hinkle, if that were the case, it would prove that she hadn't left of her own free will.
Any experienced officer would then suspect that possibly the trunk had been used for the storage of the person who belonged to the car, you know, the missing person.
Investigators couldn't be certain it was Joan's blood without having a sample from her to compare it to. They hoped a new forensic technique called reverse paternity could help them. It works on the theory that a person's DNA shares the same traits as the DNA of her parents. By taking a close look at both parents' DNA, investigators could estimate what their children's DNA might look like. Blood samples would have to be taken from Butler's mother and father. Then the DNA from the blood found in Joan Butler's car would be extracted and compared. The meticulous process would take weeks.
Unicorn.
While awaiting analysis of the stain, detectives ran a background check on Ricky Cho. The name turned out to be an alias, one of many. His real name was Richard Grissom. He was a 28-year-old ex-con with a rap sheet almost as old as he was.
Utility to Heather Keaton of Shawnee.
His criminal background included a history of forgery, a history of auto theft, and a prior conviction of homicide, in which he killed an elderly woman in the city of Leavenworth, Kansas.
He was charged as a juvenile in that crime and served only a few years before he was back on the street. Grissom's father was African American and his mother was Asian, giving him a striking combination of features that allowed him to drastically alter his appearance. Throughout a decade of crime and disguise, he had evaded capture. Police worked the equation: a young woman's sudden disappearance, a drained bank account, and a stolen car. Factor in a convicted killer named Richard Grissom, and the result pointed to kidnapping, possibly murder. If Joan Butler wasn't dead yet, investigators feared she soon would be. Police fanned out across Kansas City, interviewing friends and colleagues of Grissom, but no one admitted seeing him. After Joan Butler's bank account was emptied, her trail evaporated too. Investigators had no more leads. Then, on Monday, June 26th, David Roosh received a message that his daughter Christine was sick and wouldn't be coming into his optical lab where she worked. Later that day, Roosh went to her home to check on her. She wasn't there. Neither was her roommate, Teresa Brown, who had also called in sick. Christine's car was gone. Neither woman had checked into a hospital, and none of their friends had seen them. The women seemed to have simply vanished.
Good day.
The next day, their families filed missing persons reports.
Hey, you're here.
Both women were well liked, with close families and friends.
I might go out tonight. Don't think so.
Christine, age 22, enjoyed working at her dad's shop. Teresa, also 22, had saved enough money to enroll in college. Neither woman had any problems to speak of, and neither was the kind to shirk her responsibilities. Their behavior, like the mess in their home, was out of character. Detectives combed the apartment for clues. Their wallets were missing, but oddly, a curling iron was left on. It was all very disturbing, especially so soon after the disappearance of Joan Butler. Detectives collected hairs and fibers, including 2 dark hairs found in the roommate's bedding that didn't seem to belong to either woman. No blood was found in the apartment, no weapon, no sign of forced entry or struggle. In short, no evidence of a crime. The front door hadn't been forced. If there had been an intruder, it was either someone the women knew or someone with a key. It wasn't much of a case to hand District Attorney Paul Morrison.
We didn't have a crime scene here. What we had was a lot of different fragments, and so our task was to try to see what we could put together from that and build a scenario and piece together what we think happened.
Detectives learned that passkeys had been given to a painting company, Richard Grissom's painting company. What began as a missing persons case now looked like a spree of kidnappings. The day after police searched Christine and Teresa's apartment, Christine's abandoned car was found a few hundred yards from her home. On the driver's side fender were fresh flecks of blue paint, but inside they found no viable clues. Later, a check of the roommate's bank records showed another sinister parallel with Joan Butler. Their accounts were quickly drained through multiple transactions. But if investigators hoped to link Richard Grissom to the missing women, they'd need solid proof. It surfaced in the lab when the dark hairs found in the roommate's bedding were analyzed. The hairs proved to be of African Asian origin, like the suspect. That wasn't the only link. From Grissom's employees, police learned that he had rented a storage locker for his business. Detectives obtained a search warrant to have a look. Inside, they collected some hairs. And outside, a potentially bigger clue, a 6-foot length of duct tape, wadded up and embedded with hair.
About every 8 inches, there was a large number of long human hairs, and then a space, and then long human hairs, as if the tape had been used as a gag, had been wrapped around the mouth of someone.
Investigators hoped this was what they needed to link Grissom to the victims. They compared the hairs on the tape to those gathered from the missing women's hairbrushes. But the sun had bleached the hair found on the roof, making a definitive comparison impossible. That, along with the gag, suggested she had been held there against her will. The discovery raised more questions than it answered. Why was there no sign of her roommate, Teresa Brown, or of Joan Butler? Where were the women now? While investigators pondered these questions, the case progressed on another front. The results from the testing of the bloodstain found in Joan Butler's trunk had come back from the lab. The DNA in the sample closely matched DNA from her parents. Physical evidence now linked Grissom to 2 of the 3 victims. Their whereabouts and Grissom's remained a mystery. As police searched for Richard Grissom, their hunt led them from Kansas City to Grandview, Missouri, 22 miles away. Grissom's own car was found abandoned in a parking lot. It was taken to the police impound lot, where detectives spent 5 hours processing the incriminating contents. They found false IDs and stolen credit cards, some belonging to Christine Roosh and Teresa Brown. Police also found keys to their apartment, to the home of Joan Butler, and dozens of others. Family members were brought in to identify the items. The evidence connecting the criminal to his victims was now more than circumstantial. But so far, it was moot. Richard Grissom was even now on the lam, and police were no closer to catching him. Christine Roosh's father identified 3 rings belonging to his daughter. But still, no sign of Christine. 3 days into the investigation, hopes of finding the women alive were fading. As police continued to dig, they learned through an informant that on the very day that Roosh and Brown disappeared, Grissom had rented a second storage locker in the Kansas City suburb of Stanley. He stopped using it just 3 days later. The manager told police a young woman had paid for the unit, but she filled out the application under the direction of a man. The manager couldn't positively identify Grissom's picture. She recalled that the woman seemed distressed, like she needed help. She signed her name Roosh. Yet the woman the manager identified in the photo was Teresa Brown. There seemed no reason for Teresa to impersonate Christine, unless she had no choice. Detectives searched the locker, but found no signs of violence or other leads. Then, on their way out, they spotted something familiar: blue paint.
This storage facility had a computerized gate access where you have to drive up, punch in a series of codes, your PIN, if you will, and then it would allow you entry into the storage facility. The poles were set rather close to the touchpad, and it was apparent that several cars had run into these poles in the past.
The paint was similar to the paint found on Christine's car. Police took chips from the poles and the vehicle and sent them to the Johnson County Crime Lab, where forensic examiner Gary Dirks analyzed them.
The question paint chip displayed no differences when compared against known paint that was removed from a blue concrete pole beside the storage shed that Richard Grissom rented.
The blue chip helped police paint a picture of what might have happened in the storage shed.
Our belief of the coming and goings from this storage facility was that that's where he was hiding out. That's where he was hiding from the police, and that's where he most likely was hiding Christine Roosh and very possibly Teresa Brown.
As Kansas City police continued their search for 3 missing women, a final clue turned up on the other side of town, courtesy of an 18-year-old Good Samaritan. He was on his way home from work when he spotted something on the roadside. It seemed someone had lost their valuables: a checkbook, credit cards, receipts, and other papers. The young man decided to contact the owner. Her name was Christine Roosh. Police found 4 checks unaccounted for in the ledger. They were traced and recovered. On the morning of Monday, June 26th, the day Christine called in sick, she cashed them at the drive-up windows of 4 branches of her bank. Within an hour, her account was emptied of $2,400. None of the transactions were filmed, but police believed Grissom was with Christine.
You can look at her checks as she signs them that morning. Clearly, Christine Roosh, very steady, legible handwriting. With each check, the signature degrades more and more and more to the point that the last one, you almost can't read it. And you can only imagine, Christine sitting in the front seat of a car, knowing that what her fate might be.
At 10 p.m. that same day, Christine drove to an ATM in Belton, Missouri, and cleaned out the bank account of her friend, Teresa Brown. Police believed by this point Grissom had already killed Teresa, and Christine was next. These are the last photos taken of Christine alive. Kansas City police were desperate to capture the elusive Richard Grissom. Then they got a break. Grissom slipped up and told friends where he was heading. They informed the police, who apprehended him in Texas and brought him back to Kansas.
You grew up in the area?
Leavenworth. Well,
The police still had no bodies, but they had a long chain of evidence leading to Richard Grissom. Besides the stolen jewelry and emptied bank accounts, they amassed a wealth of forensic evidence: bloodstains, paint flakes, and hair samples.
Each forensic piece of evidence by itself probably did not make or break the case, but the consistent thing about all those small pieces of evidence were that they all pointed directly at Richard Grissom as being the perpetrator of these crimes.
On November 4th, 1990, Richard Grissom was convicted of kidnapping, robbery, theft, fraud, and murder. He's serving multiple life sentences in the Kansas State Prison. Grissom never explained what happened back in Kansas City, but police have their own theories. Grissom had keys to the apartment of Christine Roosh and Teresa Brown, so getting in was no problem for him. He'd also done work in Joan Butler's apartment complex and obtained a key for her unit as well. To this day, the whereabouts of the missing women remains a mystery, closely guarded by Richard Grissom.
I think Grissom is a true power freak, and I believe that this is his last act of defiance, that he was able to get over on the police, be able to prove that he is superior in some manner, because the investigators have never been able to find the bodies, and I think that's his last card.
A determined, experienced killer can tax a police department's resources, but so can a killer who acts on impulse. Elizabeth, New Jersey is an industrial town and a residential suburb of New York City. Like any city, it has its share of crime, and its police force is trained to handle whatever might come up, through deadly force or shrewd detective work. Once a criminal is in their sights, they don't give up. Shortly after 6 a.m. on Wednesday, August 5th, 1992, a mechanic arrived for work at his auto shop. He spotted a car parked out front that didn't belong there. He found out the owner was Karen Sherrier. He phoned her to pick up her car, but her parents said she wasn't home. They hadn't heard from her in 2 days. Her family was alarmed to learn that Karen hadn't shown up for work, that her car had been abandoned. Her sister reported her missing. Detective Christopher Kenny was assigned to the case.
The family was definitely concerned right from the beginning. It was unlike her to not call anybody or contact anybody over a period of time. She has a lot of friends located here in Elizabeth. Her family was down the shore, and she would be in touch with someone. At this time, she hadn't called anyone or spoke to anyone.
From the family, police learned that Karen had gone out for a night on the town 2 days before. One of the bars she stopped in was right across the street from where her car was found. On the same day that Karen Sherrier was reported missing, police launched a search to pick up her trail. It led 3 blocks away to the City of Elizabeth Recreation Pier along the Elizabeth River. There, a police dog picked up Karen's scent going onto the pier. And then the trail went cold. The search for Karen Sherrier took New Jersey detectives back to the last place she was seen, the bar across the street from where her car was parked. The owner and one of his customers recalled seeing Karen early on the morning of Tuesday, August 4th. She was with a man named Joseph Zabita. Detectives called Zabita in for questioning after learning that he had been paroled from prison just a few months before. According to Detective Kenny, at this point, he seemed a likely suspect.
The criminal history showed that he had been arrested numerous times in the past, and that he had also been arrested for a rape and had spent time in prison for a rape.
Zabita admitted being with Sherrier the night she vanished. He explained they went bar hopping on Monday the 3rd, and early on the morning of the 4th wound up at a tavern on Front Street. He said Sherrier was giving him a ride home when they passed a man she knew. She stopped, Zabita got out, the other man got in. That, Zabita said, was the last time he saw Karen. He said he didn't know the other man's name or where they were going. During the interview, detectives noticed a crescent-shaped bruise on Zabita's arm. He explained he had caught it in the tailgate of a pickup truck. He allowed the detectives to take photographs for the record.
Once we were done interviewing him and talking to him that evening, we had to let him go because we had no evidence to hold him.
Still, detectives didn't buy Zabita's story. The bruise on his arm looked a lot like a bite mark. To be sure, they sent the photographs to forensic dental consultant Haskell Askin.
I did determine upon looking at the photographs that this was, in my opinion, a human bite mark, and it was a matter of finding the teeth to match up with this bite mark.
If Karen Sherrier made that mark, it would prove that more went on than Zabita admitted. But to match the teeth that made the mark, investigators still had to find Sherrier. The next day, they were back on the waterfront. This time, they brought along an officer from the New Jersey State Police Missing Persons Unit. Again, the search was futile. With no word from Karen Sherrier and no reason for her to disappear on her own, investigators had to assume she was dead. Detective Kenny had no motive, no evidence, no body, and no case. Still, he kept his suspect in his sights. Zabita was the last person seen with Karen Sherrier.
We would call Mr. Zabita in, we would speak to him, talk to him again. He stayed to his story, basically, and We spent about 3 months just trying to find Karen Sherrier's body.
Police had tried everything, from interviewing witnesses to tracking with bloodhounds, and had come up empty. The victim's family applied pressure to keep looking.
Karen Sherrier's family and friends came to us and they requested that we do a search. They wanted to do a search. They felt like they wanted to do something to try to find her. They told us they would go out, they would make up flyers, they would get volunteers.
Investigators agreed to one more search. But then, Mother Nature intervened. The worst storm in a century walloped the New Jersey coast, churning up the entire Elizabeth River waterfront. Once the flooding subsided, Sherrier's family insisted that the search proceed. Some 30 police officers, firefighters, and civilians combed the banks of the Elizabeth River, not far from where Karen's car had been found. But the odds of finding anything now seemed astronomical. They searched all day without turning up anything. Then, near the railroad bridge, a searcher noticed something in the weeds a few feet from the water's edge. He'd found a human skull. It was apparently washed up by the storm, then left behind as the waters receded. It was an amazing find, but was it the remains of Karen Sherrier? The teeth would provide proof positive, except that every last one of them was missing. The search for Karen Sherrier turned up a skull in the Elizabeth River, but without the teeth, the first solid clue seemed utterly useless. Investigators brought Haskell Askin back on the case to apply his expertise. His first finding was unsettling.
Examination of the skull suggested to me that the teeth had been forcibly or traumatically removed from the skull.
Even though the teeth were missing, Askin found distinguishing traits in the skull. The shape of the sockets where the teeth had been, the shape of the roots, and a distinctively shaped bone along the sinuses. Askin then compared his findings to skull x-rays taken by Sherrier's dentist. There was no doubt in Askin's mind. The skull was Karen Sherrier's. Armed with these findings, detectives returned to the Zabita household and served an arrest warrant on Joseph Zabita. Down at the station, he revised his story.
We explained to him what we believe happened. We told him what evidence we did have. After talking with Joe Zabita for a little bit of time, Joe Zabita admitted to us that he did, in fact, kill Karen Sherrier.
As before, Zabita said they left the tavern in the victim's car. By now, they had spent several hours together, and he had slowly won Sherrier's trust. Then, he betrayed it. They drove to an access road down by the Elizabeth River. There, he ordered her to stop the car. They began to fight, and Zabita hit Karen in the face. He couldn't recall how many times.
He struck her. Once he struck her, she wasn't moving. He was nervous, worried.
Zabita left her there. Then he parked her car across from the auto body shop and walked home.
What happened there?
Zabita never explained why he cut off the victim's head. Police speculate that Zabita, worried after being questioned about the crime, returned to the scene and tried to destroy the victim's physical identification. In our legal system, a confession may not guarantee a conviction. Cases are won on the merits of the evidence. Without the victim's teeth, investigators couldn't prove she made the bite mark on Zabita's arm. They had nothing to definitively link the suspect to her. So they asked Zabita to show them where he dumped the body. Police divers never found the remains. Detectives built their case on what they had. Eyewitnesses who saw Zabita with the victim on her last night alive, and the x-rays of the victim's skull. Joseph Zabita pled guilty to aggravated manslaughter and was sentenced to life in prison. He won't be eligible for parole for 25 years. Investigators traced Karen Sherrier's murder to a chance meeting with a sinister stranger. Detectives in South Portland, Maine, had far less to go on. On August 16, 1991, police were called to the home of William and Pearl Bruns. Pearl's daughter, Elaine, was worried because she hadn't heard from her mother in 3 days.
So when was the last time you spoke with your mother?
Pearl never went far from home and always phoned her. Detective Linda Barker spoke with Elaine.
The daughter was very adamant that her mother always called her at least once or twice during the week.
She calls me like 2-3 times a week. I haven't heard from her in a couple of days now.
And that's
Inside,
unusual?
the first thing the detective noticed was droplets of dried blood starting in the kitchen sink and trailing through the house.
I saw drops of blood at the sink. I saw drops of blood as you go into the bathroom and in the bathroom sink. Indeed, there was a lot of drops of blood in various places throughout the home.
Elaine explained that her mother was a hemophiliac and bled easily when cut. Pearl had cut herself in the kitchen on the day Elaine last saw her and had rushed to the bathroom to dress the wound.
Can I show you the rest of the house? Sure.
Along the way, she must have left a trail. Aside from the disconcerting bloodstains, most of the Bruns' home was neat and orderly, but the bedroom was a shambles.
Yeah, I don't know where she would have been going, but this is not the way she passed.
It looked as though Pearl was interrupted while packing to leave.
Oh, look, there's some more blood.
On the suitcase were more
Yeah, it's
drops
not
of
unusual.
blood.
Like I said, even a small cut. Well, I mean, it's unusual just that, she...
On the bookcase, Elaine noticed something that upset her more than the blood.
What's that? Well, she never took
Her
this
mother's
ring off.
friendship
This is from
ring.
her best friend. She got it 14 years ago, and it's never left.
Elaine explained that Pearl never went anywhere without it.
And you just now found that?
Yes.
She also said that Pearl had not taken her car. Pearl loved her Cadillac, and it was still sitting in the garage. And she said there was no way her mother would leave without her beloved Cadillac.
The Cadillac might have been the only beloved thing in the home. After 5 years, the Bruns' marriage had soured. Elaine said when she last saw Pearl, she was depressed. Her credit cards were maxed out. Her husband complained of Pearl's spending. Pearl had told Elaine, "I'd be better off dead." She wondered if Pearl might have done something rash. There was no sign of her anywhere in the house. The one place the Portland police hadn't looked was a place Pearl rarely ventured: the cellar. They didn't find her, but they found more blood. It was red, not brown, so it looked fresh.
You do agree this doesn't look like it's blood?
With Pearl nowhere to be found, the logical person to question was her husband, William. He was a truck driver who was out on the road.
Hi, what you want?
When he returned, William Bruns recapped his last day with Pearl. After Elaine left, he said, an argument broke out over the same old thing: money. Around 6 that evening, he left the house. He said he went to a donut shop, ran some errands, then stopped for dinner. When he got home, Pearl wasn't there. She didn't return, and he never gave it another thought.
It became very apparent that she didn't just leave, and he just didn't care. And I have a photograph of her right here.
Barker launched an exhaustive investigation into the whereabouts of Pearl Bruns. She questioned neighbors. She visited Pearl's old haunts. No one had seen Pearl since she'd been reported missing. Next, Barker phoned taxi services, bus depots, and airlines. Every call was a dead end. If Pearl had left town, it seemed she'd gone on her own 2 feet, or hadn't really left at all. With no sign of Pearl, the detective returned to speak with William Bruns. A casual remark turned into a potential clue.
I said, gee, Bill, you've had your carpet cleaned. And he goes, oh, no, I haven't cleaned it at all. And I said, well, then you've replaced it. I mean, this is like brand new rug. I mean, that's how clean it was. And he said, no, I haven't cleaned it and I haven't replaced it.
But a check with neighbors revealed that he had rented a commercial carpet cleaner a few days earlier.
Really bad stain, but
Why he would cover up such a trivial matter made investigators only more suspicious. By now, 2 months had passed since Pearl Bruns had dropped out of sight. No one had seen her or heard from her. The police suspected she wasn't simply missing, but murdered. They'd handled the case as a homicide. They used cadaver dogs to continue their search. They combed rivers and woods and other places where a body would likely be concealed. None turned up. Their main suspect was William Bruns, who still seemed unconcerned about his wife's disappearance. Bruns drove his refrigerated delivery truck throughout New England and into Canada. If he were the killer, he could have disposed of his wife anywhere. A check of the truck revealed it had been scrubbed clean. No traces of blood were found. In Maine, homicide investigations are conducted by the state police. Sergeant Mike Harriman was assigned to the case. Harriman began with the Brunses' home, if only to rule it out.
We wanted to better search the home and the surrounding areas to see if possibly Pearl's remains were within the home, in the basement, or in the surrounding area, possibly buried in a shallow grave.
On November 17th, investigators paid another visit to William Bruns. This time, they brought a cadaver dog to search the woods around the house. The search was another dead end. In the cellar, the dog detected something. Yet when police dug, they found nothing.
It likely will be.
While the search was
mine.
proceeding, Harriman interviewed William Bruns. Suddenly, the normally stoic Bruns seemed shaken.
He broke down and started crying, and we thought, well, maybe we're going to begin to hear something here. And then he just reiterated, I wouldn't hurt my Pearlie.
Now that the case had moved from missing persons to homicide, the detectives analyzed the dark brown stains found all over the Bruns home. Maybe not all of it was Pearl's. Perhaps it wasn't even blood. They didn't want to overlook any detail. At the State Crime Lab, forensics expert Ron Kaufman ran 2 tests. The first simple test would determine if the stains were actually blood. It proved positive. The second test would determine if the blood was human. He used an enzyme that reacts to human blood proteins. It reacted, proving the blood was human. But the lab couldn't determine if the blood was Pearl's.
We had no record of Mrs. Brunn's blood type. So eventually, we sent samples of the blood that we found on the suitcase, along with a blood sample from her daughter and the biological father of that daughter, to a private DNA laboratory, where they conducted what they call reverse paternity testing on the samples.
The reverse paternity test yielded a match. The blood came from Pearl Brunn's. The blood evidence gave the state police enough evidence for a warrant. They returned to Brunn's home and began looking for more blood, enough to indicate foul play. This time, they sprayed the entire house with luminol, a chemical that makes even the faintest residue of blood glow in the dark. Detectives were astounded by the results.
The whole area lit up bright green, the whole carpet, the wall. It was quite incredible. You could actually even see footsteps where someone had walked through the blood, and you could also see where someone had cleaned the carpet. You could see the motions back and forth where someone had attempted to clean it, and indeed had cleaned it by the naked eye, but the luminol could pick up the blood.
Detectives submitted the stains to the forensics lab. As they feared, it was Pearl's blood in fatal amounts. Detectives concluded that William Bruns had lied about more than cleaning his carpet. But to prove murder, they needed the body. Police believed that Pearl Bruns was murdered in her home, but they weren't at all certain they'd find the body there. Cadaver dogs couldn't pinpoint anything. Sergeant Mike Harriman knew they needed more drastic measures.
We had either the choice of removing the house from the foundation and digging that cellar with a backhoe, or finding an alternative means, which was ground-penetrating radar, to thoroughly scan that basement to see if there was a disturbance in that soil.
Ground-penetrating radar beams high-frequency radio waves into the earth. The reflected waves can detect anything from fuel tanks to power lines by revealing changes in the soil structure. Detectives turned to geophysicist Scott Culkin to conduct the search.
If you think of soil layers being laid down horizontally, they have a certain structure. And if that structure is compromised by a shovel, a backhoe, somebody digging, the soil structure, again, is destroyed.
If anyone had dug in the Bruns' cellar, GPR would reveal it. On the morning of September 11th, detectives returned with another warrant. The GPR made pass after pass across the dirt floor.
We have one depression.
About 90 minutes into the survey, the GPR detected an anomaly, a spot where the soil was disturbed.
We informed the Maine State Police of the presence of an anomalous area, and that anomalous area was approximately 5 feet by 18 inches wide, suggesting the presence of some sort of burial pit.
Something was down there. The digging began. After 5 minutes, police uncovered an oblong object wrapped in plastic and bound with a rope. It was a human body. The body was taken to the medical examiner's office for autopsy. On one arm, they found a wristwatch with a name engraved, Pearl Bruns. The examination showed the victim had been struck hard across the face. It was more than her frail body could bear.
She had a broken orbit of her eye, she had a broken cheekbone, broken nasal cannula. Pearl bled to death. If she had been given first aid or a rescue had been called to that home that day, she would have survived the injuries.
Confronted with the evidence, William Bruns pled guilty to manslaughter. He was sentenced to 15 years. Bruns never explained why he let his wife bleed to death without calling for help. Police know the couple was arguing, perhaps over Pearl's spending. The half-packed suitcase implied she was threatening to walk out. What is certain is the case assembled against William Bruns.
The forensics in this case was extremely important. I had done a considerable amount of legwork over the past year and yet didn't have the tools that the state police actually had. The cadaver sniffing dog, the luminol, the access to the ground penetrating radar, all these tools made the discovery of Pearl's body possible. Without that, we could literally still be looking for her.
Time was, police had to produce a body to prove a murder. No more. Now, murder can be proven when the victim is merely presumed dead.